Let me ask you why you do want this job. Why do you think you could turn it around? Because it doesn't look too pretty right now.
Well, David, you just had Larry Summers on. I think he would tell you, and President Obama, President Biden, Mike Bloomberg would tell you, there's no one in this race who has the deeper and broadest experience in crisis that I do. I was housing commissioner in this city in the wake of 9/11. I was housing secretary in the midst of the worst housing crisis of our lifetimes. When Sandy hit our shores, President Obama asked me to lead the entire federal recovery effort. And because no good deed goes unpunished, he asked me to lead the $4 trillion federal budget. 3 weeks into that, Ebola emerged, and I was side by side in the Situation Room with Dr. Fauci, all of our leaders across government, making sure a global health crisis didn't become a pandemic that cost tens of thousands of New Yorkers their lives. So New Yorkers want a public servant, not a politician, and they want someone who really understands what it means to lead through crisis. And that's who I am.
So let's skip over the messy little details about getting nominated and getting elected and things like that. Let's put you in the office. What's the first thing you do? What's your first 100 days? We know what the problems are. We got tax-based problems. We've got crime problems. We've got a lot of small businesses going out of business. Where do you start?
Well, first of all, we need a mayor who won't demonize and divide New York, but bring everyone together. I would first commit to being the mayor for all New Yorkers. Second, we have to understand that there's no path to recovery without getting the virus and our health under control. I would not only make sure that we were ramping up vaccines and other testing and contact tracing if we're still in the midst of this pandemic. If not, I would make sure not only every single New Yorker, but the entire world knows that we're the safest place to do business and to live. That's why I've made a Safest Cities commitment that is the beginning of rebuilding 500,000 jobs in New York City. And it's why I would make sure that we're using every avenue, not just to make sure New York City is safe, but to make sure everyone knows it so that people will come back to work, come back to live here, and that we can rebuild our tourism, arts, and culture and drive our economy back to where it should be.
Well, I was going to ask about that specifically, tourism, because people may underestimate the extent that really drives the economy of New York. Right now, I mean, tourists basically can't come because they got nowhere to go. But there also is a perception that the city's in decline, and the crime rate really is an issue, isn't it, for tourism?
Well, look, I learned this from Mike Bloomberg. I learned it from the best mayors across the country and across the world that I've worked with. I'm unique in this race because I have worked with mayors across the globe to tackle these kinds of problems. And let's recognize that in this economy, talent decides where it wants to live and companies and capital follow. If you believe that as I do, quality of life is the single most important tool that a mayor has to be able to make sure that we're driving job growth and economic development. That's why I have the most comprehensive public safety plan of any of the candidates in the race. It's also why my experience in dramatically reducing homelessness and other challenges we see across this city would be put to work to make sure that we actually make our streets not just safe, but actually places that people want to be, bring our restaurants back to life. Part of this also, we have to recognize we need a mayor who can get the help we need from Washington to do all those things. No one in this race has the same relationships I do, not just with President Biden and Vice President Harris. Nearly every single advisor in the Biden White House is not only a former colleague, but a close friend of mine. These are folks I can work with very effectively, and members of Congress, to bring the help that we need to revitalize the city's economy.
You talked about attracting and holding on to talent. Another thing that talent doesn't like to do is pay taxes. What does that mean for tax rates as a practical matter? We see a lot of people from Wall Street really taking a hard look at places like Florida, in large part, because of the tax situation.
Well, look, David, New Yorkers want results, not rhetoric. And what they know is that President Obama trusted me to lead the $4 trillion budget of this country. People forget that when we came into office, we had the worst budget deficit since World War II, and we were able to bring it down faster than any time since World War II, while still making big investments in growing jobs out of the Great Recession, in investing in infrastructure, in clean technology, so many different things that we need to do in New York City. So I'm the only one in this race with the deep experience to know how to get our budget under control and to do it in a way that we don't make New York even less affordable than it's been with our taxes and other challenges. I'm the only one who's really put out a detailed plan. We need to do three big things. Get the help that we deserve from Washington, D.C. Remember, New York sends $23 billion more each year to Washington than we get back in return in services. That needs to change under a mayor who can actually get the help we need. Second, we need a mayor who's actually managed the huge budgets and knows how to make sure we get to things like a real hiring freeze, getting healthcare costs under control, and really demanding more efficiency and innovation in government. And then third, we need to make sure that we continue to invest in things that will make the economy grow. Quality of life and our educational system, which I have the most comprehensive detailed plans for as well.
You can't do it alone, and it may require more even than Washington. That is to say, you need the business community to really support. Some might say that under the most recent, the current administration, there hasn't been a great relationship between the mayor and the business community in New York. What can you do to enlist the business community to help you get done what needs doing?
Well, I think that's a diplomatic way of putting it. And let's be clear, I think the current mayor has demonized and divided New York. A hallmark of my career, whether it's working under Mayor Bloomberg or all 8 years in the Obama cabinet, is being able to build public-private partnerships. Look, I grew up in this city in the 1970s and 80s. My dad is an immigrant who came to New York, started a company, and ran it his entire life. This is personal to me. I saw what New York City looked like in the 70s and 80s. Watching the Bronx burn actually lit a fire in me to go to work in public service. I came back after school and started rebuilding neighborhoods across New York City. I fundamentally understand that we need everyone at the table if we're going to rebuild this city. We need a mayor for all New Yorkers, not someone who's going to demonize and divide us. So that's who I am. That's who I've always been in my career. And it's personal to me, David.
So Shaun, I said put aside the messy little details about getting nominated and elected. Let's talk about those details just for a moment. What's it like campaigning in a virtual world, a world of social distancing? How do you do that?
Well, look, you got to be safe first and foremost. Some of my fellow candidates haven't been doing that and have come down with COVID. We need to make sure safety is first. Second of all, we need to really adapt our strategies to be able to reach folks. You know, one of the things about Zoom is you can get up to a lot of forums all over the city and draw New Yorkers independent of where you are. So it has its downsides, but it definitely has its upsides in being able to reach people effectively. The last thing I would just say is it's going to take a team that really understands how to do this. And one of the things I'm proudest of, we've built the most talented team in the entire race. We've hired real talent coming directly off the Biden campaign who understand what it means to use the latest tools with texting and other technology to do distributed organizing and reach folks. You really have to be nimble and understand today's technology to be able to win a race like this. That's the team that we've built.